Welcome back, Southeast Asia, to the finals of the 2018 Garena Premier League spring season. We have just witnessed Ascension Gaming take quite the game one against the Kuala Lumpur Hunters, but we'll be discussing that as we go along. But quick intro first, Arctic at your service. With me is Chisto. Man, I'm pretty sure you caught that earlier. What happened there?
Yeah, I think for Ascension Gaming, the game plan for them was very clear, because if you look at the Kuala Lumpur Hunters, it's very clear what you need to do. You need to shut down their jungler, the heart of the team, Caspiel. And I think Ascension, just from their pick and ban phase, they had winning matchups in all three lanes, which really allowed Intreso to constantly invade the Sejuani and shut down Caspiel. In the moment that Caspiel wasn't able to set up anything for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters, I think everything just began to crumble.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit more of a crucial factor there, especially since Caspiel was running a Sejuani, and if you're going to look at the rest of the composition, there's nothing quite as harder on the team that could just really set things up, except for Caspiel. Some of them, sure, but yeah, it was kind of a detriment.
As far as the draft goes, for Kuala Lumpur Hunters, I think the Poppy pick from Shiro, it was meant to just hold down the Camille, because Poppy does deny a lot of the mobility, but since the Camille got quite a huge lead, the Poppy really wasn't able to hold her down during the split push, and the rest of the four members, they just couldn't find the picks that they needed to get with the Sejuani, ultimate the Zoe as well. I think in the mid lane, G4 really bullied the Zoe a lot in that matchup. RH really just wasn't able to get a lead that Zoe really needs to be effective, especially with the nurse to her damage specifically. So yeah, for this next pick and ban phase, hopefully Kuala Lumpur Hunters can get a few better matchups in the laning phase.
I wonder though, is it going to be much of banking on Caspiel again to try to impact the lanes? But I guess time will tell with this next incoming draft though. But in all fairness to Ascension Gaming though, again, it's just time and time again from what we've seen from them on the group stage going into the playoffs, just very much dominating, playing to their strengths as a team, and just very classic Intreso, classic Shiro. It's just very much textbook from everybody that follows the history of Ascension Gaming at this point. But nonetheless, I mean, there is still quite a bit of hope for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters. This is a best of 5 going into the finals. Gone are the days where we had these shorter formats, basically. So hopefully we see the Malaysian team mount a comeback. But then again, as predictions... Oh, by the way, I mean, me and Vulcan, we've kind of talked about our predictions earlier. How about you, Chisto? How would you like to see this go at the end of the day?
I'd want to see this go 3-2 in favor of the Kuala Lumpur Hunters.
Oh!
But Ascension have looked very good today. And I may be wrong, but I would want to see this go 3-2 in favor of the Malaysian squad, as I do believe we are going to be heading straight into the pick and ban phase.
In
just a few?
Yeah, just a few. You know, they're still kind of allowing themselves that moment to discuss, but I'd have to agree with you. I mean, like, by heart, I would love to see the Kuala Lumpur Hunters win this series, but then again, as far as just what we've seen on paper, Ascension Gaming definitely looking like the better team to clinch this. You say 3-2, I say 3-0 for Ascension, Vulcan went 3-1. So let's go ahead and see though as we head into the pick and ban phase. So far, pretty much the same bans that we're seeing thrown out so far.
Yeah, pretty standard bans here, considering that both Swain and Olaf were very key picks for all the teams really during the group stage. And you mentioned the group stage, and I want to talk about why I thought KLH were going to be the victors here. Headed into this GPL specifically, I think out of all the teams, Kuala Lumpur Hunters have exceeded the most expectations out of all of them. But yeah, let's go ahead and go back to the drafting phases. Alistair and Rise will be denied here. Third ban though, KLH deciding on what they want to take away from Ascension Gaming. So far, nothing yet really stands out from the bans. Most of them seem to be very standard target bans at specific players. Jax will be denied, so that will be the adjustment that Kuala Lumpur Hunter makes. They don't want to deal with interest of constantly invading Caspiel's jungle.
Yeah, that was pretty respectable earlier. during game 1. Meanwhile, it looks like it will be the Skarner being thrown out. So just another ban there onto Caspiel to minimize his efficiency going in for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters. Meanwhile, it looks like we do see a potential priority hover over this Camille area was utilized by Ascension Gaming. So I think Kuala Lumpur Hunters are looking to potentially take that away from the Thai squad. But looks like they're going to switch it up. Going to go for a very gutsy Cassiopeia pick, which G4 used himself earlier.
That does leave both Camille and Caitlyn available for Ascension Gaming if they want to go that route. The Cassiopeia pickup here, it's a very confident pickup because normally you wouldn't select your solo laner on blue side this early. It shows a lot of confidence on the side of Kuala Lumpur Hunters, as Sejuani will be the pickup here for Ascension Gaming. I wouldn't be surprised to see them lock in a Caitlyn here to pair with that Sejuani because it did work very well during that first game.
I'm wondering if, I'd understand perhaps if maybe Kuala Lumpur Hunters prioritize this Cassiopeia around the second or third pick, but the first pick is kind of surprising for me. What I could think of is, I guess it would make sense to want to go for your mid laner earlier on. Not this earlier on though, but then again, look, remembering what happened during the second rotation of bans during game 1, I guess it does make a tad bit of sense just because of how many mid laners were taken off the board from both sides. But meanwhile, it looks like the Caitlyn will be locked in by the Hunter, seeing that Ascension gonna opt for that Varus instead earlier.
Yeah, what will the Kuala Lumpur Hunters decide to pair with this Caitlyn? They can choose to take away the Braum pickup here because if KLH do not select that, it leaves it open for Ascension to pick up, and I really wouldn't be surprised to see the first 3 lock-ins of Ascension be the Sejuani, Varus, and Braum. Shen will be the selection here for Kuala Lumpur Hunters.
So with the Shen though, we have seen the Shen
There's a Braum
demonstrated by the, okay, I'm highly doubt that's going to be Draven. But yeah, with the Shen at the same time, I recall earlier on during the group stage that it was flexed to a support, particularly by Bigatron. I can't recall if there were other teams that flexed it to support as well, aside from the Indonesian squad. But looks like, as you predicted, Chisto, it is going to be the Braum. That is a lot of crowd control right off the bat coming in from Ascension Game.
Yeah,
a lot of potential lockdown.
Just from the first part of the pick and ban phase, I think Ascension have gotten such a huge win just with their first 3 picks. All of these power picks and all of them complement each other very, very beautifully. Of course, the lockdown provided by the Sejuani and Braum, and just the follow-up damage that the Varus can bring. Now headed into the second ban phase, Ascension are yet to lock in the solo laner, so I think KLH would want to ban out some mid laners and top laners here. They have denied the Camille, which worked so well for Rocky in the first game, just allowed him to split push all day long, and there was nothing Kuala Lumpur Hunters could do. As for Ascension, they are going to pinch the jungle position even more here, banning out Caspiel's Jarvan. So his champion will definitely be tested here.
Yeah, just kind of got narrower and narrower and narrower for Caspiel. Just 4 bans ultimately committed to that one jungler alone. And this is kind of something we touched on earlier, and if you're going to look at the Kuala Lumpur Hunters, everybody's a talent, but there's the one clear threat that everybody kind of came to agreement with when you talk to the other teams in the GPL. It's mostly Caspiel that they respect, not so much of the other players on KLH. Meanwhile, looking at Ascension though, it's a little bit more diverse because you have superstars in the form of Intereso, in the form of G4, in the form of Lloyd, who have pretty much made a name for themselves in Southeast Asia. So I'm wondering how that'll pan out here for Caspiel with just that laser focus coming from Ascension to deny him.
Yeah, and I'm looking at what jungler Caspiel can possibly pick here. Zac comes to mind because looking at the backline here for Ascension, it's a Varus and an Orianna, both very immobile champions. Zac would be a perfect pickup here for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters because he adds that backline threat. He can easily dive on top of these immobile champions. It will be difficult for Ascension to actually get him off, and he is left here on the table. Kuala Lumpur Hunters are really taking their time with their next pick here. It will be the Zac.
No surprise right there. Again, another prediction from Chisto for you right there. And makes very much sense. With all of these junglers taken off the board from KLH, I guess it would be one of the few sensible picks at this point for Caspiel to go with.
And now, I guess the question here, Arctic, is whether the Shen will go to the top lane or the support position. There are things such as a Morgana which will deny a lot of the engagement. Taric, I was just about to mention the Taric, he works well in this lineup as well. He will deny a lot of the AoE potential coming from Ascension's lineup. Now, they are lacking a top laner here to deal with the Shen. Trundle is a good pick here.
Interesting.
Because he will deny a lot of the tankiness that he does provide. And it provides one more interrupt for the Elastic Slingshot with the Ice Pillar. So far, very solid drafts from both teams here. But one thing that is a big difference, KLH have opted for more lane dominance. As for Ascension, they're more on that full-on 5v5 team fight.
Overall, I love how this drafting went for both sides. You could clearly tell how both sides just kind of thought it out thoroughly. So right down to the T, for every single detail, take into account what each side has drafted so far. So I think this is probably one of the best ones that we've had yet here in the Garena Premier League. Each champion making somewhat of sense. But at the end of the day, I'm wondering how this will go down here, because Kuala Lumpur Hunters, they're at that one loss deficiency to Ascension Gaming. So if anything, if they drop one more, then it just forces it into a match point wherein they have to make that massive reverse sweep, which is quite the mountain that you have to climb if it does reach that point.
It does make things a bit more exciting in a sense, though, Arctic, if it does reach that match point area for Ascension Gaming. But of course, it's a best of 5, so it's a very long series. Kuala Lumpur Hunters, with their draft here, could easily tie this up and make it a 1-1 scoreline headed into the third game. I think it's just a question of whether or not Caspiel can set his team up for success once again, because he is the heart of the team throughout this tournament. We keep talking about this guy and why he is such a huge asset for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters, and it does show. If he is shut down, it's incredibly difficult for KLH to set anything up. So the key here is Caspiel on the Zap.
With all said and done, though, ladies and gentlemen, for all of you that are watching Southeast Asia, who are you guys rooting for? Continue to show your support for your favorite team, wherever you're watching right now, whether it be Facebook Live or gaming.youtube.com/phgarena/live. Do you guys want to see Kuala Lumpur Hunters equal out the scoreboard 1-1, hashtag KLH win if you want to do so? Or do you want to see the Psy Squad, currently in home territory, just take it all the way and rep for Southeast Asia? Hashtag ASC win for our boys on Ascension Gaming. Let's head on to the Rift.
Yeah, of course. I'd want to think that Ascension Gaming do have home court advantage. The crowd would definitely be cheering for them whenever some great play happens.
Yeah.
You're going to hear them erupt for those stuff. But yeah, it's fairly early into the game. Just point defense for both of these teams. Watching out for those invades, which I think were really key for Ascension Gaming because they had stronger lane matchups in Game 1. It really allowed Interso to have the freedom to constantly invade Caspiel, but that's not the case for the second game. I think Caspiel will have a much easier time in his jungle. It's not a Jax anymore trying to shut him down.
I'm wondering, though, I mean, with this Zac pick, if he could push for a lot more proactivity within the earlier phases, because it was just very calm for the jungler of Kuala Lumpur Hunters during Game 1, and we didn't really feel the presence of that Sejuani as much as you would have hoped you would. Even in points wherein Caspiel already hit level 6, it was mostly Ascension Gaming going for more proactive plays, pushing their advantages and making the plays that they were able to build up on. And let's go ahead and see, though, how that'll go down. Looking at how junglers have started out here. So, interesting transition here from Caspiel now that they say Wolves going in towards the bot side. Meanwhile, Interest just very classic off sticking with that blue buff, transitioning to Wolves towards the upper side.
Yeah, and it looks like since Caspiel decided to start towards the top side of the map, he will be wanting to set something up towards the bottom side where Ozaraveki on this Caitlyn with the range will be able to bully both the Braum and the Varus, and if she does get poked quite a bit, there is the healing from the Taric. So Kuala Lumpur Hunters have a lot of power within the mid and bot lane, and those are the lanes that Caspiel really needs to play around here and try and get ahead, because top lane will be fairly non-interactive, both these champions fairly tanky. This early to the game, it's very difficult to actually lock somebody down, as mid lane, looks like G4 will be taking a bit of pain here from R-Hedge.
Yep, quite a bit right there, but looks like at the end of the day, both mid laners kind of at the similar chunk of health here. So just small trade-off right there. Meanwhile, you have to take note, R-Hedge still has one pot up over G4, just having none in general.
And after that trade, Arctic, what I noticed is R-Hedge is actually running the Presence of Mind in his rune setup here on the Cassiopeia, meaning that every time he gains a level, he'll have a few seconds where he practically has infinite mana. So every time that Cassiopeia levels up, she will immediately go in for a trade versus his Oriana, knowing that she has the advantage.
But meanwhile, I mean, with that advantage here for that Cassiopeia lingering towards this top side, we do see quite the shove-in coming here from Rocky. And look at this. CS difference pretty massive already to an extent. Looks like Shiro just farming up what he can as far as what waves come to him. So interesting dynamic here, lingering towards this top lane here for KLH and Ascension.
Yeah, and one more thing that really baffles me is the pathing that Caspiel decided to take. He started his Wolves, and he did not go to take his blue buff. Looking at the minimap, his blue buff is still available. He went all the way, cleared his bot side jungle, and then invaded the Gromp of Intereso. So interesting choice of pathing here by Caspiel.
I think this might be an adjustment that Caspiel made as of what happened during Game 1, because I remember earlier what happened was within the first pathing, they pretty much cleared out the exact same camps, and they went for the same maneuver when they went for these invades. So I think by going for the Wolves earlier, Caspiel was anticipating that the Gromp would have most likely been up by Intereso, having started off towards the blue buff. So I think it's just a small denial right there. But of course, in exchange, because of that, Intereso, there's a chance that he might catch in on Caspiel once he goes for an invade himself, farming up what camps he did leave out, just right there.
Wait, actually, I think that Caspiel handed the blue buff over to his mid laner because Zac really doesn't benefit that much from having the blue buff. He doesn't rely on having mana, and cooldowns this early really will help Zac not that much, but I think the blue buff will benefit R-Hedge more, allows him to stay in lane longer, and even bully G4, which I think in that first game, R-Hedge just got bullied by the Cassiopeia, so trying to repeat what G4 did to him in that previous match.
I think that actually does make sense here, and at the end of the day, it does help R-Hedge, gives him a little bit of relief as far as being able to get more combos in on poison into those spam on Twin Fangs. So definitely a good maneuver here. Good sacrifice as well for Caspiel. But then again, I think he could pretty much even, like you mentioned, could pretty much deal without that blue buff. And let's say if it does translate to just a small setback, but okay, both junglers managing to spot each other out. Again, Intereso just gonna back away from there.
Yeah, and you know why Intereso is confident to go and invade that? Because his laner, the enemy laners just reset. They went back to base, meaning that if Caspiel did begin to get into trouble, there would be no backup onto him. That's why Intereso is fairly confident to go for that. But now R-Hedge and Zoraveki are walking back into lane. Intereso has to back away. Needs to respect that KLH's lane matchups right now just have an advantage this early.
And meanwhile, we're kind of looking back towards this top side. Again, CS difference translating quite interestingly between both Shiro as well as Rocky. If you notice, yeah, Cull. That's one thing that I noticed right off the bat. That just gives all the more incentive to Rocky to make sure that he is of efficiency when it comes to last hitting those creeps.
Yeah, I like how you notice the Cull art, meaning that Rocky really knows that he's not going to be able to kill this Shen in the matchup until the later parts of the game when Trundle gets his subjugate, able to shred those tanky stats. Just allows him to get even more farm, even more gold in his pocket, and allows him to scale even better.
Meanwhile, that is going to be a pass-off on Ascension Gaming's own blue buff to R-Hedge right there. Great play there. Caspiel a little bit more control up over what's going on in the jungle than Intereso this time around. Quite an interesting feat, in fact.
I like how that almost sounds the same, interesting, but yeah, another blue buff being handed over to R-Hedge, meaning that this Cassiopeia is being given so many resources in this mid lane. Even though no kills are happening yet, you can really see the lead that will come off of this because the Cassiopeia is just receiving so many more resources compared to G-Force Oriana.
And that must have been so frustrating for Intereso. If you're going to notice, lingering towards the bot side after discovering that his blue buff was taken for R-Hedge's keeping. But looks like he's going to try to balance things out by... Okay, unfortunately, the wave is a tad bit more pushed out for Ascension, so he can't really push for a gank here towards the bot lane. Not to mention, he is level 6 now, though.
Yeah, and I think the key now here for Kuala Lumpur Hunters mid and bot lane is to avoid the ganks coming from Intereso. They are at a position where they are ahead, RH has been receiving a lot of resources. Ozoroveki has a comfortable 10 CS lead over Lord. So now they need to avoid the ganks coming in by Intereso, because if you're Ascension's jungler right now, your mindset would be, oh, my laners are struggling. I need to help them possibly get back even with Kuala Lumpur underslaners. So he will be looking for a gank. He just hasn't found the proper opportunity yet, because KLH have been sort of reading his movements throughout the map and have been able to track him.
And in the midst of this tracking, I mean, I guess it somewhat translates as well, because at the end of the day, it's just another scenario when it's somewhat been calm heading into the 10-minute mark in just a bit. So I'm wondering at what point of contention will we eventually lead to a first blood. I'm wondering if it's going to be through these junglers, via ganks or whatnot, because so far everybody across lanes has been pretty much been keeping up in their farm game. Less so on the trades as well. I mean, we saw a few trades here and there, maybe in mid lane, tad bit towards top, but nothing that's particularly translating just yet. Just a few scratches mostly.
I do believe that the game has been progressing fairly slowly. Even though we have two junglers that can easily engage onto the enemy champions, no action has really happened towards the lanes. Most of it has just been Caspiel, actually both junglers invading each other's jungle camps whenever they do see a proper opportunity to. So far, a bit of a slow early game here. I think it does favor the 5v5 team fighting comp that Ascension has, because looking at Kuala Lumpur Hunters, they're going to want to open up the map and split push here. They do have the Caitlyn to siege down towers, and they have the Shen, which can always be a split push threat. So if you're KLH, you might want to begin setting up a play somewhere which could translate into a tower take, because so far this game has gone fairly slowly.
Yeah.
That is a blue buff onto the Trundle.
Interesting. So, okay, so it's the blue buff take from KLH's side in exchange for what happened just a few minutes ago when Intereso passed on the blue buff to RH once again towards the blue buff side of Ascension Gaming. So just a few mirrors here and there. Just these small, subtle takes. But that's the interesting thing, though. Like, the matchups that we're seeing here in the form of objective contention as opposed to just these full-on brawls between both sides here.
It's high-level play, Arctic. That's what you see at the highest level, where nobody dies during the first few minutes. That really knows that these players, they know that if one of them dies, it could really tilt the game in the other team's favor. And I like what Ascension Gaming did, where they knew that since their mid and bot lane were struggling, they couldn't play towards that side of the map. But since Rocky has an advantage towards the top side, that's where they can go for an invade. And just like that, they will take away the blue buff. No first blood yet, though, which I'm really waiting for, you know?
Yeah,
I just want to start to see that one on the scoreboard, and then these teams begin to like shake it off. They start just running at each other, especially with an exciting team fight comp such as Ascension. The moment you see one of those crowd control abilities, but we keep talking about first blood.
Yep. And I mean, even in the midst of first blood, I guess I could just imagine what's going on in the chat right now. People saying, when is the fight gonna happen? It's just been so slow this game so far, but with very good reason. As you mentioned, this is just a clear demonstration of how professional play goes on a whole nother level. And that's just Ascension and Kuala Lumpur Hunters for you right there. Meanwhile, we are seeing a proactive move from KLH.
They are gonna try and set up for something, but oh no.
It's going to be the pull in. Ooh, let's bounce. Doesn't quite get anybody. KLH tried to go for that maneuver. Didn't quite pay off right there. If anything, not even a summoner expended from the members of Ascension.
I think if the Scuttle Crab wasn't on the side of Ascension, KLH would have picked something up there. But since Intereso secured that Scuttle Crab earlier, it shut down the bot lane play that KLH were trying to make, because that was the play that they needed to do. They needed to get Ozoroveki and what just outside of laning phase. They needed to end the laning phase around that mark so that the Caitlyn can rotate around the map and chip down the other towers, and so that the Shen could thrive in a split pushing position. But the smart takes of the Scuttle Crab here, Intereso just shutting down what KLH were trying to do.
Exactly. It's just these small micro details right here that allows Ascension's Thrive to keep Kuala Lumpur Hunters at bay. And I think that's the interesting thing here. Just these subtle things that are happening on the map. It doesn't always necessarily need to translate to these bigger fights here. First Bloods, 3-for-1s and whatnot. But Caspiel actually tries to go for something here onto G4. Doesn't get to connect onto Let's Bounce. But yeah, that's what's interesting thing. That's the interesting thing about this game too right now.
Interesting. We'll probably just Arctic Assault away here. Man, look at that. Caspiel, he tried to set up something in the mid lane. Intresso immediately in the area to try and respond to the play. And I think part of the reason why the play has been fairly passive for the first 13 minutes of this matchup is none of these teams want to make that risky move that really costs them the game. Because if you're Ascension, you have momentum after winning game 1. You don't want to toss that all away by giving back momentum to KLH by giving them the chance to possibly begin snowballing this game for them.
Meanwhile, though, looks like Rocky in the midst of all this calmness before the storm, able to get quite the chunks on this turret right now. Any moment, that is going to be going down. And I think that's where we'll really start to see things get rolling. And if anything, that's something that KLH might not really want. If anything, maybe it's KLH that might have wanted to get that earlier on turret, as you mentioned, just so that they could utilize this Caitlyn with Shiro elsewhere in lane, Saldamore.
One thing that KLH can do though to shut down Rocky taking down this tower from Shiro is they can move Azora Vecchia and what the Jess towards the top lane, do the early swap so that that top lane tower does not go down, as Caspiel will just style his way out.
Yes, just a little bit of a blast out of there. Luckily, Lasting Cone was there for his taking. Alice is ejected out of danger. And looks like KLH, they're going to get this Scuttle Crab for their own.
Yeah, and the longer the laning phase progresses for Kuala Lumpur Hunters, actually the more that it hurts them, because the Shen will not be able to hold down the Trundle in an extended laning phase. Generally, you'd want to see the Caitlyn lane take their tower around the 10 to 15 minute mark, but we just passed that point, and I don't see the bot lane outer turret of Ascension Gaming going down anytime soon, as it looks like KLH will get a taste of their own medicine as the blue buff is stolen away.
Yes, and Rocky just scares Shiro out of there, and that is finally going to be first turret going to Ascension Gaming. Just a very calm pace that we're going at, ladies and gents. But I'll have to hold up. I take that back. That's going to be Caspiel going straight in. Two-man taunt onto the members of Ascension Gaming's bot lane. That'll finally be first blood going to our hedge. Looks like Rich, he's on the run right here, but take a note, that's 5 members of Kuala Lumpur Hunters really wanting in on the support. Rich tries to go for the teleport out of there, but unfortunately would not succeed, and that will be... Wow. Okay, so in the midst of that, though, Rocky gets 2 turrets outside. So, I don't know. Who do you think ends up on the better end of that trade, Chisto?
As far as global gold goes, I think Ascension definitely gets the win in that situation. Their bot lane would happily give up their lives for 3 towers and a Rift Herald. Now, you see that play that gave Kuala Lumpur Hunters first blood? They should have done that 5 minutes ago, but it was shut down just by that Scuttle Crab being envisioned. So the extended laning phase really hurting KLH's win conditions here. Now they're in a pretty weird spot because there's such a long lane towards the top side. I don't think Shiro can survive 1v1 versus Rocky in an extended lane, because the Shen will definitely get run down by the Trundle. So even though the kill lead is towards the Kuala Lumpur Hunter side, I'd say Ascension definitely won the past 5 minutes.
I think this is a good textbook lesson. Okay, I'm gonna have to hold right there. Intresso goes for the Glacial Prison. Looks like they're not getting any targets. Can't really peek at what's going on down there.
I couldn't see who he tried to go for.
But it looks like from what I'm seeing here,
it's kind of a weird angle, actually.
Yeah, I was like, I kind of wanted to pull that scoreboard down a bit, but yeah,
like I could feel like you wanted to say, "Oh, Glacial Prison onto." Wait, who is it? Okay, we can't see.
Yeah, I guess we won't. Well, I guess we'll never know. But
it didn't matter though. Nobody died.
Yeah, nobody died at the end of the day, so it's all good, ladies and gents. But yeah, what I was trying to point out earlier, this is just a very textbook. How you don't necessarily need to win a game by just pushing for the kills. You could still go for other things like these objectives, and that's where Ascension Gaming is really excelling right now. And it just goes to show that you don't really need to seek out all the action on the Rift if you could eventually just translate to other aspects of the game.
I still do think though that KLH have the resources to combat Ascension at the moment. It's just that they need to find the proper fight, especially facing a team fighting comp such as Ascension's that got out of the laning phase fairly even. It's gonna be quite the tough challenge for Kuala Lumpur Hunters to navigate these 5v5 fights. There are a lot of things to look out for. The Glacial Prison to start it all off, the Shockwave to follow up, and the Chain of Corruption as well from Lloyd. And I like the pickup here from Zorobeki. After his static Shiv and BF start, he picked up the QSS, really respecting the fact that both the Taric and the Shen are not enough to help him survive versus what Ascension might throw at him.
Not a bad long-term investment coming in from the marksman of Kuala Lumpur Hunters, especially considering the composition that they have, as you said. I mean, everybody pretty much has crowd control to an extent. Probably Rocky just a little more subtle through the pillar, and I think the Chomp as well grants some sort of just something a little bit more on the softer side, but still nonetheless just looking like an interesting build-up here from both sides. Sure, Ascension does have a tad bit of that gold lead in their favor, but it's only so sizable that Kuala Lumpur Hunters still has all the means to just topple the Thai squad here.
Yeah, I think for Ascension now, they're gonna utilize the fact that Rocky is way far ahead in this top lane. There is no world where Shira can 1v1 Rocky on this Trundle at this stage of the game. So now Ascension are gonna use the fact that the Trundle is so far ahead at this moment, and they're gonna use him to split push. And now you're gonna look at it this way. KLH's 4 members will be forced to fight the other 4 of Ascension in a 4v4 situation. I think it really favors Ascension Gaming. So Kuala Lumpur Hunters, they're in a bit of a tight spot now, Arctic.
I mean, amidst that though, again, what I've been waiting for here is, okay, Rift Herald going to be summoned out here by Intresso. That's actually pretty good, because if you're going to look at the numbers, there's much more convergence from KLH towards the top side. If anything, it's only Shiro that's going to be dealing with this for now until such time that KLH decides to help him out here. Looks like bot lane for KLH is trying to go for the siege into mid lane. Caspiel will catch out 2 members of Ascension Gaming right there. Lloyd immediately goes for the flash out. Rich takes quite a bit of damage right there. Lloyd tries to get the hold onto Caspiel, connects onto RH. Looks like they will back away for the meantime. We'll be able to rendezvous with the rest of Ascension here in the mid lane for the defense.
Ascension Gaming, both Lloyd and Rich were incredibly lucky that they were able to disengage that fight as well.
Whoa, stun connecting. Caspiel goes straight in. Really wants in on G4. Yautza ultimate coming in from G4, not really connecting out to anybody. RH coming in from the back line, shredding down Lloyd, who will be the next target right here. A lot of low health bars coming in from the members of Ascension Gaming. G4, he's trying to back away, but still far away from the comfort of retreat. Meanwhile, Intresso trying to make the most of it by going for Zorobeki. In exchange, gets the kill, and that will conclude 1 for 2 for the meantime. But looks like things aren't done just yet, ladies and gents. Caspiel tries to go for the chase, but looks like we will end that 1-2.
Oh yeah, Kuala Lumpur Hunters, they immediately go for the aggressive move just after both the summoners were burned from the bot lane of Ascension Gaming. They continue to keep going. That's the type of play that they need to stop the Trundle from split pushing. They need to force Rocky to possibly abandon the split push game and try and help his team, because yeah, Kuala Lumpur Hunters, they were in a difficult spot, but if they continue to find catches such as that, that might be their way into this game.
But in the midst of that, though, take note, Rocky was able to successfully get a shove out here on this bot lane. So second tier turrets towards top in bot are down. Not only this mid lane up and kicking, and we have reached a point where Baron is now up. Not to mention Dragon will be up in just a bit as well. So that's quite a number of objectives that both sides have to take into account of now.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that KLH have begun playing like there's something on the line, because Ascension, Rocky, they're gonna just constantly use this Trundle to split push, and KLH are gonna begin bleeding towers here. They are gonna lose towers to this Trundle because he can simply ignore the Shen, and he can take down any towers in his face. And KLH, the only way they could stop that is to either engage onto Ascension or engage onto this Trundle, and it looks like choosing to go onto the 4-man squad was the right decision for them.
But I mean, what's interesting here though is KLH amidst finally the pickups of proactivity that we've kind of been waiting for since the early game. Still not as many objectives taken as I would have hoped. Still just kind of banked on that one turret that they took like many minutes earlier. But other than that, I mean, doesn't really grant them that same stretch that Ascension has right now as a result of taking 2 second tiers.
I also like the fact that we're seeing all the resources that Caspiel gave to RH in the early game really translate into the Cassiopeia having a fairly strong mid game here, currently sitting 3-0-1 already a fully stacked Seraph's Embrace and an Abyssal Mask to top it off. So it won't be easy to burst down the Cassiopeia if a fight does break out.
But, I mean, in the midst of this, though, looks like we have reached a kind of a calm moment again, but it's just opportunities being sought out by both sides. Rocky looks like he found this an opportunity of his own in the form of soloing this Mountain Drake. Will take that down quite efficiently, but take note of positioning on the map, ladies and gents. We see a bit of a convergence towards these top side. Pinks being thrown out left and right.
I think it's pretty free that Rocky will get this Mountain Drake. Nobody really there to challenge, as Baron will be the priority for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters.
I think that's a very much welcome buff for Rocky right there, though. Just going to be able to chomp down turrets all the more efficiently with that extra boost of damage onto objectives.
Yeah, and I also think that for Kuala Lumpur Hunters, Arctic, Baron is a very, very great possibility. But, wait up!
Yes, beautiful buffer on that Let's Bounce right there. G4 getting 2 members into that shockwave, but the damage is just too overwhelming for him. He doesn't manage to run that out. Caspiel will get the kill.
That could be Baron for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters. They have a fed Cassiopeia. Now all Shiro has to do is hold down Rocky, but it looks like KLH, they don't want to risk the 50-50 knowing that Intresso is up. They're going to go for the tower instead, but Baron, still a massive possibility. They have the Taric to heal them up and the Cassiopeia to shred down this Baron fairly quickly. So I think KLH are going for the much safer option in taking the free objective mid lane instead of risking that 50-50 Baron. But do note, it's still a very, very huge possibility for KLH to go for that big purple worm.
Yep. And so far, finally, we see that first tier turret in the mid lane opened up by Kuala Lumpur Hunters. So it gives them a little bit more room to roam about here, and looks like they could kind of balance things out by establishing their own form of vision towards this Baron side. So with all that, I'd say it's still pretty much close up here.
Man, this game is slowly turning into whether or not Shiro can hold down the Trundle long enough so that Kuala Lumpur Hunters can make a Baron play, or if Kuala Lumpur Hunters find a pick-off onto any of the members of Ascension that leads onto the Baron, because I think that's really what this game hinges on at the moment.
And we'll just have to see how that goes down, because for both sides, I think it's just come to a point where it's become so calculated. Like, nobody's really pushing for those extra heavy risks that could go high risk, high reward. They kind of want to go for those surefire moments. But meanwhile, it's just Rocky constantly pushing this pressure towards the bot side here. Shiro just constantly needing to go here towards bot lane to deal with whatever waves are pushed in. And while that's happening towards this bot lane, it's just been a constant battle for vision control here on the Baron side.
You know what's interesting about Rocky Arctic? He went 26 minutes into this game without having a single number on his KDA. He's been fairly non-interactive with the rest of the map. Just being that introverted Trundle, just gonna split push all his way. But it was one of the major win conditions for his team. And yeah, I think things have slowed down here a bit.
But more so, I mean, it's interesting because Ascension Kuala Lumpur Hunters, we kind of reached like an upward movement with the action that's happening, and then all of a sudden, it's as soon as that Baron spawned up, it's reached a sort of stagnance once again, wherein both sides, they don't really want to pull that trigger unless they're 100% sure that once they get a pickoff, okay, that's when we can transition to an objective. And you also have to take into account that if that pickoff isn't a jungler, then there's still that potential of a steal if they push for an objective. So there's a lot of variables playing out here for both sides.
They spot him out.
Caspiel just gonna last 6 slingshot his way out of there. He'll be just fine. But meanwhile, looks like that's gonna be our hedge going up towards top side. Banner of Command.
Oh, it's a banner.
Finally popped up.
Okay, so Shiro is playing Shen. He does have some damage to deal with this. Not unlike some champions who rely a lot on magic damage, but man, look at the damage coming out of Rocky. Oh my.
He's just making the merry-go-round around this turret, just enough to take it down. Looks like Caspiel, he tried to help out here, but looks like, are we going to be seeing the fight that Ascension is looking for? Knowing that 3 members of Kuala Lumpur Hunters are isolated from the rest, Arhedge tries to get the hold onto Lloyd, but Lloyd will escape just fine. A little bit lower on the form of mana, but that's going to be a bash in between both Intresso as well as G4. Let's bounce in onto Intresso, bringing him into Azora Becky, but it looks like Ascension, they're going to back away for the meantime. Rocky, keeping Shiro preoccupied, is able to take down that inhibitor in the midst of all that action.
Yeah, there's really no way that Shiro can stop this Trundle from taking everything from him. Now Zorveki, he's in a bit of trouble. But look at the rest of KLH. Their AD carry is going down, but the rest of them are onto the Baron. They still have the Cassiopeia. Can KLH burn this down in time?
Probably not the best call right there because they're lacking in the form of the damage. Sure, they have the Cassiopeia to constantly throw the Twin Fangs, but it wasn't enough. Ascension Gaming was able to make it in the nick of time because of that takedown onto Zora. But Rocky, he doesn't give a care in the world. Continues to pressure out Shiro to just deal with what's happening here on the base. Kuala Lumpur Hunters, they know just how painful, how fast Trundle takes these objectives, but things aren't done just yet. Okay, that's going to just be a wider fight there.
Will Rocky end this game without adding a number towards his KDA? Because he's just been constantly pushing all the towers towards the bot lane. The bot lane inhibitor is gone as well, but look at the top lane, Arctic.
RH actually managing to get the shred down onto Rich. KLH, they are on the chase onto both Lloyd as well as Entresso. Looks like tries to get it on Lloyd, but looks like Rocky gonna continue to split it out here in the mid lane.
Oh my god, this Trundle is such an annoying thing to deal with for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters. There's just nothing that the Shen can do to stop him.
I don't think Rocky has ever had any involvement in most of these fights, but it looks like KLH gonna turn right back to the Baron. Entresso will spot this out, but this is gonna be very interesting. Kuala Lumpur, all 5 members are resolute on taking this Baron to keep this game to alive and kicking for them. Will they get it? Oh, steal does not transpire here. For Entresso, he's going to get taken down right then and there, and looks like KLH, all 5 members will get the take, but meanwhile Rocky actually manages to get a Nexus turret afterwards.
Okay, Kuala Lumpur Hunters, they do secure the Baron. It was not stolen away despite that being a 50-50 situation, but has the damage been done? Rocky even managed to take out one Nexus tower and another mountain wave. This will just help the Trundle shred the towers even faster. Man, even Summoner's Rift is on Rocky's side.
Yeah, and this is just a continuous scenario wherein it would be baffling if Rocky just ends up 0-0. If ASC wins this, Rocky 0-0, but becomes MVP purely off what value he brought as to taking objective after objective after objective from Kuala Lumpur Hunters without even needing to take a fight against any of those champions.
It kind of makes me wonder, Arctic, has there ever been a competitive League of Legends game where a winning team had a member that went 0-0-0, just split pushing the entire game? I can't recall a single moment that this has ever happened.
Not just that, but I mean 0-0-0 on a winning team, plus being that MVP factor which propelled your team to win that game.
I mean, on paper it looks bad, but if you watch the game, Rocky has actually been doing majority of the work for the Ascension here, regardless of their other members being picked off here, being engaged on by the Kuala Lumpur Hunters. KLH have failed to even manage to get close to the inhibitors of Ascension, but now they do have the Baron buff. They can use this to push down.
Okay. Looks like Rocky just gonna be that distraction once again to hold the fort. Zoraveki's trying what he can. He gets the second turret, forced to back away as Ascension Gaming, they're continuing to knock here on the base of the Hunters.
Yeah, it's quite funny that the team that does not have the Baron is sieging towards the team that do have the Baron. And Rocky just... I think Rocky now, he will be the guy they will send towards the top side. You want to send him there so that he can shove that wave out. And he's already nearing that point where he's 100 CS above his lane matchup. So definitely a fed Trundle here, Arctic. Just such a pain to deal with if you're the Kuala Lumpur Hunters.
Rocky just gonna run his way out of there. Caspiel elastic slingshot. Ooh, does not quite connect right there. Rocky flashes out of just that. But yeah, objectives, just so much taken from the Hunters at this point. And that's the interesting thing. Like, if you notice, they can't even chase on full in mid lane just because there's always that threat of Rocky, if they commit to something elsewhere on the map, that Trundle could just walk back in onto their base, take a Nexus turret, potentially finish the game. Hopefully not in the Kuala Lumpur Hunters case, but it's just coming down to the wire. In Ascension Gaming, the mind games are excellent.
Yeah, and especially in a situation where you would want to have the Shen stand united available if you do go for that fight to the rest of Ascension. But if Shiro's not there to try and slow down the Trundle, he'll just end the game straight up. But now RH, it looks like he wants to take this 1v1.
Yup, looks like Rocky gonna try to run it out. RH still trying to go for the chase here. Will actually get the Rage Miasma to cut off Rocky from escape. Looks like Rocky gonna go for that domain right there to give him that speed boost. RH actually gonna run him out. Will he get the crowd control in on Rocky? Looking very healthy. He's actually gonna go for RH in exchange. RH, he's trying to do what he can. That's gonna be a bit of a shield, but take note, the rest of Ascension, we're gonna be the one splitting this time, going for the inhibitor while you're busy towards top side.
No, they put a number on his KDR. Like, they ruined it. He was all on his way to win a game without even having a single kill, death, or assist. But still, Rocky would be saying that is worth my life. The inhibitor will go down in the mid lane. Ascension making the right response.
And that just opens up more opportunities for Ascension once again. Bottom lane inhibitor did respawn just a tad bit ago, but taking down that mid inhibitor kind of puts Ascension Gaming back to them on the map. And it's interesting because a lot of the times Kuala Lumpur Hunters were constantly trying to deal with RH. Oh, Zoravecki almost goes down there. Force brought the heal. Yautza, that's going to be a connect right there. Oh, Haspiel actually goes in onto the members of Ascension Gaming. That's going to be the pickup right there. Two members get bounced off into the hands of the Kuala Lumpur Hunters. But looks like Ascension just going to back away. Lloyd taking quite a bit of damage right there. Will he survive to tell the tale? That's 3 members down from Ascension Gaming. Kuala Lumpur Hunters, is this their opportunity right here? Looking at things, Intresso actually just lingering in the back line. Looks like KLH, they're going to make the transition towards this top side. They're going to force out this inhibitor here.
Oh no.
Oh no, Rocky.
They're trying to buy time.
Rocky, he's trying to run this out here, but with 5 members on him, well, I don't think he's going to survive this. Just goes down instantly. Caspiel now on a killing spree. Looks like the Malaysian squad, they could potentially go for the finish here.
Okay, what Intresso is trying to do is delay the minion wave so that the backdoor bonus is still up onto these towers. Now, all KLH has to do is tank these towers with the Zac and the Shen, and they should be able to end the game with the Zoravecki's Caitlyn. Oh my god, are KLH actually going to do this?
That's going to be first turret. Second turret coming in. Looks like Rich is up and kicking. So is this Varus right here. Kuala Lumpur Hunters, unfortunately, they can't go for the finish just yet. They're keeping the members of ASC at bay. And looks like they'll back away for now. But man, this is getting intense, ladies and gents.
Yeah, Intresso came back just in time to smite away the minions, and that added the more armor onto the towers of there. Oh my god!
Ton in onto Intresso right there. He gets decimated by KLH. ASC, they're on the run for their lives right there. Looks like G4 is going to be the next possibility right there. Strategy is working quite well for the Hunters right here. All 5 members are still up and kicking. This is the moment. They can't go for the finish at this point.
I do think they can go for the end here, Arctic. They will be trying to zone away the bot lane of Ascension Gaming. Rocky has already spawned. Oh my, he teleported to the base.
Cosmic Radiance right there. It's going to be the race for their lives right here. Rich and Lloyd, they're trying to hold the fort, but looks like KLH, they're going to go straight right there. Who's going to make it out first? It's going to be the Nexus right here. It looks like it's going to be Ascension Gaming taking game 2, forcing it at match point. What a race, ladies and gentlemen. Whew.
What is that ending?
Oh my goodness, I need a moment. That was insane.
The decisiveness on Rocky to go for the end of the game instead of defending his base. Ascension, the mental fortitude there to go for that. Oh my god. I'm speechless.
Oh my god. The camera pans straight us. That was like, oh my goodness.
Those were probably 2 hits away.
Yeah,
there was 1 hit away, but 5 members hitting it. That was an incredibly close ending to a very exciting match, but in the end, it will be Ascension Gaming securing the 2-0 over the Kuala Lumpur Hunters.
You know what's really interesting about this is that looking at what happened throughout that game, I feel like the stars kind of aligned for Ascension Gaming, because you have to take note, they got lucky with 2 Mountain Drakes coming into their side, which allowed them to push that advantage all the more. So oh my goodness, I don't know, man. That was just absolutely intense. And I also got to give kudos to both Lloyd as well as the support. Keep on forgetting his name, but they were able to hold out in time for KLH to go for that finish.
Yeah, I think Lloyd and Rich really did a great job. They're at least trying to crowd control the members of Kuala Lumpur Hunters, delay the push as much as they can. I think the Varus Route might have done some of the work there, but yeah, I think the decisions as well, Intresso delaying the minion wave from arriving really bought a lot of time, but I I've seen some close endings to games before, but probably not as close as this Arctic. That was an absolutely insane ending to game 2.
I almost forgot to cast and I just wanted to hold my breath to find out who was gonna eventually end that game, but
that was incredibly close. But yeah, congratulations again to Ascension Gaming for getting that game 2 win. They are now on match points, so if Kuala Lumpur Hunters do want to head all the way to MSI, they need to win by doing it 3 games straight.
So there you have it, guys. Looks like the reverse sweep condition has been pushed for the Kuala Lumpur Hunters right then and there. Take note, this is a best of time with us. Best of 5 with 2 games up for Ascension Gaming. Man, this is just going to be intense. Let's go ahead and check out this replay once again, though. So look at this. Lloyd was actually able to get a hold off here on the members of the Kuala Lumpur Hunters, which allowed just enough time for Rocky to go straight for that Nexus.
If R-Hedge ignored the Varus and instead hit the Nexus, I think KLH might have had a closer shot, but he was so focused on the threat that Lloyd might clean them up on the Varus meant that there wasn't enough damage going over to the Nexus. But yeah, an insanely close ending to game 2. Oh man, tough for KLH. If you're a Kuala Lumpur Hunter fan, that type of ending really just hits you in the heart, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know, man. At this point, as far as predictions go, okay, so your prediction is still up. Mine is still up. Vulcan 3-1. So, oh wait, 3-1. So his is still up as well. So I guess we'll find out how the predictions go down towards the end of the day, guys. We're going to be taking a quick break for now. I need to take a breather out of that, to be honest. We have been your casters, Arctic at your service, fam. With me is Chiso. This is the 2018 Garena Premier League Spring Season Finals. Catch you guys for another game.